to Inky Johnson.
Thank you so much. I love energy. Like, I've been all about everything that's been going on. I thought I was at a game for a moment. I was over there pacing, back and forth. I was getting fired up. I wanted to come out of the tunnel for a minute. But before I get started, I have to express my gratitude to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for this moment. Amen. I'm extremely, extremely thankful to be here. I have to express my gratitude to Alan and his team. Thank you all so much for thinking enough of me and giving me this opportunity to be before your group. But before I get started today, I live with this edge, I guess you can call it. And so I live with this belief that we always have more in the tank. We always can go a little bit further. We always can push a little bit harder. We always can dig a little bit deeper. And so this theme of being all in, that's me. All day, all in, that's me in every aspect of my life, not just one aspect. And so I live by this thing called empty the bucket. And so I brought this bucket up on the stage with me, and I have some things inside of this bucket, and I keep it with me. I keep it in my truck. I keep it beside my bed. I keep it with me at all times. But the thing I want to do with this bucket, I want to come off the stage, and I'm going to hand this bucket to a couple of you all, and I have a couple of words in here, and I want you to pull the word out. Whatever word you pull out, you show it to me, and I'll repeat it to the group if you don't mind, before we get started. If you could start us off, sir. Accountability. Communication. Self-discipline. Never give up. Hard work. Persistence. Proactive. Back. Obedience. Inspiration. Oh, you grabbed something that wasn't anything. Humble. Tell you the reason I did that and tell you the reason I chose a bucket. When you think about a bucket, I did my history on a bucket, and so a bucket goes back to BC, over 5,000 years ago. And so when a bucket was first formed, a bucket has always been used to move things forward in life. And so, for example, if there was a guy up on the hill and that guy wanted some water and we couldn't just get that guy some water, or he couldn't get down to get the water, we can put the water in a bucket and we can get it to that guy, and so to speak, that water gives that guy life. And buckets also were used back in the day to put out fires in people's homes. And so when you think about a bucket, the reason I live my life the way I do, if I can live my life in such a way that it gives you life, meaning it inspires you, it motivates you, it encourages you, it empowers you, and it makes you want to go further and live your life in a way that you don't want to give up. If I can empty my bucket and it put out a fire in your life, meaning it puts out a problem, it puts out opposition, it puts out adversity in your life, my life and the way that I live it is giving you life and giving you inspiration and giving you motivation to keep going and to be a better person in every aspect of your life, meaning it has nothing to do with me, and that is the key to life. You live your life in such a way that it has nothing to do with you, and you live it and you execute at such a high level that when people see you, when people see how you operate, when people see the person that you are, when people see you hit adversity, when people see you hit opposition, and you don't give up, that inspires the next person to keep going. You see? You see, but I have to tell you how I got to this moment. I have to tell you the backstory of who Inky Johnson is and why I live my life in this way. It's kind of like the backstory of the battle between David and Goliath. You see, when most people see that story of David and Goliath, yeah, they know David defeated Goliath, but what most people miss is the backstory of how David defeated Goliath, of how he got prepared for that battle and how he slayed him. You see, I grew up in inner city Atlanta. I grew up in a 2-bedroom home, and there was 14 of us living there. And I used to sleep on the floor every night. And my grandmother had this amazing rule. One night out of the week, I got the opportunity to sleep in a bed. And so when I got my opportunity to sleep in bed, there would be 6 of us in the bed, 3 at the foot and 3 at the head. And so I love this 2-bedroom house, and I love my experience of sleeping on the floor, but every night I had this cousin by the name of Tamon. We would go out in the street and we would race light pole to light pole with no shoes. Every night, faithfully, we would be out and we would race, and we would race light pole to light pole with no shoes every night. And so one night we got out in that street, and I was looking at him, he was looking at me, and we were about to take off, and I heard this voice call my name. He said, "Hey, Ink." And I looked up, and it was my Uncle JJ. And there was a football in the air. And I caught it. And I looked at my cousin, and I looked back at the football, and I kind of gave that football the look that I gave my wife when I first saw her when I was in the 5th grade. And when I first saw my wife when I was in the 5th grade, I said, "Yeah, that's her." And when I first saw this football, I looked at my cousin, I said, "This is it." And he said, "Ink, what are you talking about?" I said, "This is our family's way out of poverty." I said, "This is my mother's way of never having to work another day in her life." See, I grew up in inner city Atlanta in this neighborhood by the name of Kirkwood. And at the time when I was coming up in Kirkwood, Kirkwood was one of the roughest areas in America. Drugs, gangs, violence, you name it, we had it. I said, "I'm going to put whatever I have to put into this game of football and going to the NFL, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to embrace the process, and I'm going to make it happen." And so I remember when I was playing rec league football, and after practice, every night, everybody would leave to go home, and I would always be the last kid in the park because I would be waiting on my mother to come from work, and I would be sitting on the bench. I would be sitting there, and I would have my shoulder pads beside me, and I would be looking up at the lights, and it would be pitch black in the park, and I would be looking up. I would be looking, just envisioning myself making plays in the NFL, and I would say, "Man, I can't wait until I make it to the NFL." And I was a visionary when I was a child, but the thing about being a visionary, sometimes it was painful because I could always see where I wanted to go with my life. I could always see what I wanted to become with my life, but I always had to come back and deal with the raw reality of life. And the raw reality of life is this: no matter how many touchdowns I scored in the football game, no matter how many points I scored in the basketball game, no matter what I did on the baseball field, I still had to come back and sleep on that floor with roaches and rats. And so sometimes it would be painful. But every night, as soon as that last light would go out, my mother, she would pull up from work, and she was driving this old Regal, hubcaps off the car, seats all torn up, the car was all beat up. And she would pull up and she would put that car in park. I would hop up off that bench. I would sprint over to my mother. I would give her the biggest hug and the biggest kiss that I could give her. And I would say, "Mom, if you don't mind, can you please sit back in your car? I have to do some extra drills. I have to go to the NFL. She would never have to work another day in your life." And my mother would look at me. And every time she would say, "Sure, Inky." And she would sit back in that Buick Regal. And those car lights would hit the field. And here you had this 7-year-old kid. I would start doing backpedaling drills. I would start running laps. I would start running sprints, chasing this dream to go to the NFL. And just beyond those car lights, I could always connect with my mother's eyes. And so it made me dig a little bit deeper. It made me run a little bit further. It made me push myself a little bit harder. I was also the kid that would be up at 5:30 every Saturday morning with my father. We would run miles and miles to this fire station. My father, he was a passionate guy. He was a big guy, and he loved sports. So every Saturday morning at 5:30, me and my father would be out, and we would take off. We would run miles and miles to this fire station. And every morning before we took off, my father, he would say, "Son, I need you to pull that other person outside of you today." And so I would give him a head nod because I love the thought of being up at 5:30 in the morning, chasing my goal and chasing my dream. It was mine. I was responsible for it. I wasn't putting it in anybody else's hands. And so I was going to get up and I was going to work for it. I wasn't like these kids today. I didn't have the $1 million dream with the minimum wage work ethic. I didn't hope for it more than I worked for it. My expectations never exceeded my efforts. I never had to get dragged out of bed. I was already at the line before my father got to the line. And so one morning, we were at the line. My father said, "Son, I need you to pull that other person outside of you today." I said, "Yeah, let's go." He said, "Son, I need you to pull that other person outside of you today." I said, "Man, let's go. It's 5:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. There's nobody out here but me and you. Let's get to work." I said, "Are you trying to talk your way out of this thing?" He said, "Son, I don't think you heard me. I need you to pull this other person outside of you today." And at this point, I had enough. I said, "Man, what other person? It's just me and you out here. There's no other person. Let's work." And he said, "Ink, I want you to hear me, and I want you to hear me clearly." He said, "No matter how hard you work, there is somebody inside of you that works even harder." He said, "No matter how dedicated you are, there is somebody inside of you that's more dedicated. No matter how committed you are, there is somebody inside of you that's more committed. But here's the catch, son. I need you to pull that other person outside of you, not just in the things you want to do, not just in selling policies, not just in the game of football, not just in the things you like, not just in the things that are convenient. Son, I need you to pull that other person outside of you in every aspect of your life, meaning in everything that you do. I need you to be all in. I need you to execute at a high level. I need you to empty your bucket at everything that you do. Because, son, here's the catch. You can't be a champion just in one aspect of your life. You can't just go all in the game of football and call yourself a champion and you go in the classroom and make straight up. Son, you can't be a champion if you only operate at a high level in one aspect of your life. I like to call it the Porsche policy. And what I mean by the Porsche policy is the first time I ever rode in a Porsche before in my life, I was with a realtor and I was looking for a home for my family. One of the most exciting times ever. I grew up in a 2-bedroom home, 14 people. I had made it to the point where I was looking for a home for me, my wife, and my 2 kids. Now, I'll never forget, me and the realtor, we were in the parking lot, I was walking behind her, and she kept turning around and said, "Inky, come and ride with me." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm fine, I'll follow you." She said, "Inky, come and ride with me." I said, "No, ma'am, I'll follow you." She said, "I don't claim to know much, but the one thing I did know, my wife didn't want me riding in the car with another lady when she wasn't around. So I'm not doing it." And so she kept asking, "Inky, come and ride with me. Inky, come and ride with me." And so eventually I didn't want to come off his roof. I said, "Okay, I'll ride with you." We walked up on this black Porsche Panamera, talking about decked out. I never rode in a Porsche before in my life. I got a lot of friends in the NFL, they don't even drive Porsches. I just left from Ramon Foster. He wasn't driving a Porsche. He's in the NFL. He lives here in Franklin. And we get inside of this Porsche, and I sit back, and I'm like, man, this is really nice. And we take off, and she's driving fast. She's gassing it. And I looked over at her. I said, "Ma'am, you're driving pretty fast, you think?" And she looked back at me. She said, "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm only in the first gear." I said, "Well, how many gears do you have?" She said, "I have 3. But I take that and I correlate it over into my life, and I take that and I think I can correlate it over into some of you all's lives. When I thought I was all in, when I thought I was giving everything I had, my father would say to me, "Son, I need you to empty the bucket. Son, I need you to give everything you got. Son, no matter how hard you work, there is somebody inside you that works even harder." What he really was saying to me, "Son, you're operating in gear 1. You have 2 more gears that you haven't even tapped into yet. You haven't even pushed yourself to the limit. You haven't even pushed yourself to the point to where you feel as if you can't go anymore. You have to dig a little bit deeper. You have to push yourself a little bit further. And you have to go a little bit harder. You haven't even reached that point yet. So until you push yourself to that point to where you have to dig a little bit deeper, to where you feel as if you're about to pass out from working so hard, that's when you come and talk to me." I will never forget, we used to go out on the field and we would be working out in the summer, and I would be gassing and I would say, "Pops, can I get a water break?" He would say, "Son, have you seen the white light?" He would say, "Have you seen the white light?" I would say, "No." He would say, "Keep working." In other words, "Have you seen God?" "No." "Well, keep working." He would always say, "You will pass out before you die." But what he really was telling me was this: "Son, I want you to push yourself in every aspect of your life, because there will come a time where you will hit a certain piece of adversity. You will hit a certain piece of opposition. And your strength alone won't do it. You will have to pull from another place. You would have to have a certain level of inspiration and a certain level of motivation to keep going. Basically, you would have to have a why for what you do. Son, you would have to be reaching from another place, because you will hit this piece of adversity, and son, it will crush you. It will make you quit. It will make you give up. It will make you give in. It will make you not want to get up in the morning if you don't have another source to pull from. And so, son, you have to train yourself mentally. Son, you have to train yourself physically so you can be strong in every aspect of your life. Because the thing about life, somebody is dependent on all of us to keep going. And so by the time I got to high school, I got it. I was pretty good at every sport, but not in particular because of me and my talent. I had a strong support staff around me. I had people around me that saw something in me when I couldn't see it in myself. I had people around me that encouraged me. I had people around me that told me, "Son, I see greatness within you," when I was sleeping on the floor with roaches and rats. But I was attending one of the lowest performing public schools in the whole state of Georgia. The dropout rate was higher than the graduation rate. People used to shoot teachers at my high school. Nobody had been to college. The name of my high school was Prim High School. They used to call it Crime High in Atlanta. But here I was, this kid that had dreams of going to Division I. I went my freshman year, I did well in every sport. I was a 4-sport athlete. After my freshman year, my mother and father came to me and they said, "Inky, listen, the coaches across town at Tucker High School said, all you have to do, come and play your next 3 years. They guarantee you a scholarship to the University of Georgia. Guaranteed. All you have to do is play football. Guaranteed scholarship. Inky, nobody in our family has ever been to college." I said, "Mom and Dad, you know what? I really appreciate the offer, but I think I can make it from Crime High School." Guaranteed scholarship. Nobody in our family had ever been to college. You have all the resources that you want. All you have to do is go and play ball. I said, "Yeah, but I hear that, but I think I can make it from where the dropout rate is higher than the graduation rate. I think I can do it." My father said, "Son, the chances of that happening are slim to none." I said, yeah, but I think I can do it. I said, Mom, this is why we sat in the park when I was 7 years old and you sat in that Beard Regal with your car lights on, right? I said, Pops, this is why we got up at 5:30 in the morning and ran miles and miles to that fire station, and when you would drift off, I would look back at you and say, son, keep going. There's nobody working right now but me, you and Michael Jordan, right? And whether that was true or not, I believed it. He said, yeah. But at the end of the day, what do you think they did? They transferred my little butt anyway. So much for my motivation and my inspiration and my drive, right? And I get over to this school by the name of Tucker High School, an incredible program, one of the top programs in the whole state of Georgia. And so Tucker High School was a little bit on the suburbs, and I come from inner city Atlanta. I come a couple exits from the Braves Stadium. We used to play tackle football in the street, and so once I got on the grass, it was nothing. And so I got over to this school, I said, man, you know what, I'm going to show these cats how we do it back in Kirkwood. Coach said, Ink, what number do you want? I said, give me 21, prime time, neon, Dion, baby, let's go. First football game, who won it first? I won it first, give it to me, I guarantee you it'll be 6, Coach, give it to me. He said, okay, Ink, I'm going to grant you your wish. He said, I'm going to give it to you. He said, Ink, I'm going to call a bubble. And so for my football people, what happens on a bubble, I line up at the slot receiver, I'm off the ball. We have an outside receiver, he's on the ball. At the snap of the ball, I bubble out. That's why the play is called the bubble. I bubble out, the outside receiver blocks down on my guy. I catch the ball, it leaves me one-on-one with the cornerback. Coach had enough faith in me. I will beat the cornerback one-on-one and outrun the whole defense for a touchdown. And so the play with this plan, I caught the bubble. My outside receiver, he blocked down. I made a move on the cornerback and I made a mistake. I went back inside to the pursuit of the defense, what you don't do when you're 135 pounds. And that outside linebacker was licking his chops and he laid it on me. And I hit the ground. I was taught as a kid, Ink, as soon as you hit the ground, you respect the game. You always respect what you do. You look at it as a blessing from God and you give everything you got to it. But I couldn't get up. And so I'm yelling to the guys, get up, man, let's go, let's play ball, man, let's go. So the guys kept falling on top of me. I said, man, get up, man, let's give the supporters what they came to see. I never really believed in using the word fans. I think it's an arrogant term. Who am I to call a person a fan? They pay to see you play. They're supporters. Let's give the supporters what they came to see. Let's play ball. Guys kept falling on top of me. I said, oh, I get it. You guys are playing girl ball. And as soon as I said that, one of the guys, he grabbed my ankle, he twisted it, he tore the ligaments in my ankle, put me out for the season, put me in a wheelchair. I got out of the wheelchair, I was on crutches. I went back to my parents' own crutches. I said, will you please transfer me back to one of the lowest performing public schools in the whole state of Georgia? My father said, no, you're not going back. Suck it up. I went to my mother. Me and my mother attended a small Baptist church by the name of St. Matthew's Baptist. My father wasn't in the church at the time. So the thing I knew about my church, my pastor had a direct connection to my mother. So I went to my pastor. I said, Pastor, listen, you have to set up a meeting with me and my mother. I have to get back to Crim High School. He said, let me stop you right there, son. He said, I know you want to get back to your little hood. He said, I know you want to get back to your little homeboys and homegirls. He said, but let me enlighten you on something. He said, son, nobody in your family has ever been to college. He said, you're at this school, they have guaranteed you a scholarship. All you have to do is do what you love. So you want to go back to a place where you're risking your life. So you want to go back to a place where you can get shot on any given day. So you want to go back to a place where you don't have any resources. You want to go back to that place. And I looked him dead square in his eyes and I said, I have to get back. And he said, I'll grant you your wish. He set up the meeting with my mother, and the meeting went like this. He said, Ruby, listen, if it is in God's plans, not your plans, if it is in God's plans for Inky to go to college, Inky will go to college. You can't make that happen. First football game my junior year, I run for over 100 yards. This particular play, I do a draw. I break past the line of scrimmage. I break past the linebackers. I cut, I make a move on the safety. I get hit pretty hard. I hit the ground. I get up. My shoulder is hurting. I run over to the sideline beside my coach. He said, Ink, what's wrong? He said, you never come out of the game. I said, yeah, coach, my shoulder is hurting me really bad. And at the time, we didn't have any trainers at Crim High School. We didn't even have water bottles on the sideline. We just had to drink out of the opposing team's water hose. And so he bent down, he took one of the shoestrings out of one of my cleats, he put my arm in the sling position, he tied the shoestring around my neck and my arm, they put me in my father's truck, rushed me to the hospital to discover I had broken my clavicle, out for the season again. And so the thing you have to understand about Kirkwood, every day in Kirkwood, I had to literally walk through the gang members and the drug dealers to get home. And so the thing about the hood, the way it's set up is funny because some people want to see you make it, but the majority of the people, they don't want to see you make it. And so every day I would be walking home and I was in this figure eight contraption and the guys would start calling me from the corners. They would say, hey, Ink, hey, little Ink. And I would duck my head and I would speed up and I would try to walk really fast and they would jog over to me and they were having a ball with it every day. They would say, Ink, let us get this right. Aren't you the same guy that said you were going to change the way that people thought about this community? I would say, yeah, that's me. They would say, Ink, let us get this right. Aren't you the same guy that said you were going to change your family situation? Had 2-bedroom home, 14 individuals. I would say, yeah, that's me. They'll say, hey, let us get this right. Aren't you the same guy that said you were going to put Crim High School on the map where the dropout rate is higher than the graduation rate? I would say, yeah, that's me. They would say, your future's not looking so bright. Maybe you'll end up on one of these corners selling drugs like the uncles going in and out of prison. Had 8 uncles. 6 out of the 8 had been to prison multiple number of times. Got an uncle just went to prison a month ago looking at 10 years. So I got really discouraged. It's kind of like that quote that says, people too weak to follow their own dreams will always find a way to discourage you from following yours. But it has nothing to do with you. They didn't make it. They don't want you to make it. They didn't have enough faith to do it. They don't want you to have enough faith to do it. They didn't have enough courage to do it. They don't want you to have enough courage to do it. And so going into my senior year, I had given up on my dream to go to the NFL. But God sent this amazing man, this amazing coach by the name of Darren Mouse. I'm a firm believer that God will strategically place people in all of our paths in order to help us to become the individuals that he wants us to become and get to the places that he wants us to go. And so God sent this amazing man and this amazing coach by the name of Darren Mouse. Had no business coming to Crim High School. Successful coach. Great man. He had a heart for inner city kids. And so he came over to Crim High School. He called me his first day on the job. He said, Inky Johnson, I heard you were a great athlete. Why aren't you coming to practice? I said, Coach, my dream has changed. I'm going to the NBA. He said, oh, man, you're going to the NBA, huh? I said, yes, sir. He said, oh, man, you know what? He said, I heard you can play point guard pretty good. I said, yeah, you're talking to the right guy. He said, as a matter of fact, I heard you average over 40 points per game. I said, yeah, you're talking to the right guy. He said, yeah, well, while you're at it, smart guy, I want you to run up to that library in Kirkwood and you look on every NBA roster and you tell me how many 5'9", 135-pound point guards you see. He said, then I want you to scroll over and look on every NFL roster and you tell me how many 5'9" cornerbacks you see. And you give me a call back in the morning. I hung up the phone and I looked at my auntie. I said, the nerve of this coach. He's already trying to kill my dream. I sprinted to the library. I'll never forget. I got on the computer. I looked on every NBA roster twice. I didn't see one 5'9" point guard. I looked on NFL rosters, 5'9" cornerback, 5'9" cornerback. I went back home that day. I gave Coach a call. He picked up the phone. He said, what did you think? I said, I will be at practice tomorrow. He said, I thought so. Make a long story short, I went out, I made it past my senior season. I had a really strong senior season. That coach just so happened to be Jamal Lewis's high school coach that played running back at the University of Tennessee and had a great career in the NFL. I'll never forget my first workout. He took me through some cone drills. He came to me after that workout. He said, son, you are faster than Jamal Lewis and you are quicker than Robert Kamadi. What college do you want to go to? I said, Coach, I just want to go D1. That's been my dream ever since I started playing when I was 7 years old. He said, son, you didn't hear me. He said, you are faster than Jamal Lewis. You are quicker than Robert Kamadi. What college do you want to go to? I said, Coach, I just want to go to college. He said, okay, I'll put together your tape. Now, I'll never forget, he was shooting the tape out, and people would come to see me, and they would say, man, you're extremely talented, but son, you're not even in position to graduate high school. Son, you don't even have an ACT or SAT score. I would say, just offer me the scholarship. I'm doing what I have to do in order to make it. I will make it. Just offer me a scholarship. They would say, Inky, it doesn't work that way. And I would never forget the day that I set up a meeting with Georgia Tech University, and me, my mother, and my father, we were in the meeting. But before I left home that morning, my mother and father had already beaten me to the school. And I went into my grandmother's room. I had my chest out. You know, I had my head up high, man, and I was feeling good. And I went into my grandmother's room. My grandmother, she's the sweetest lady you'll ever meet in your life. And I said, Grandma, I said, I have a meeting today with Georgia Tech University. And my grandfather was sitting there in his wheelchair. He didn't have any legs. He's passed now, God rest his soul. And she said, yeah. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, I think they're about to offer me a scholarship. She said, go get him, man. And I'll never forget, I walked out of that house and I was feeling great. And I got to that meeting, I sat in front of that scout, and I was looking at him. He had the transcripts, he had the qualifications that it took to get into Georgia Tech University. We weren't in the meeting 3 minutes. He looked up, he looked at my mother, shifted, stopped at me, shifted, stopped at my father. What do you think he said to me? Let's take a guess. Didn't qualify? I wish he would have put it that nice. He said, son, there is no way that you will make it to college. He said, you just wasted my time. He walked out. That was total disrespect to my mother. That was total disrespect to my father. And the way I took it, that was total disrespect to anybody that ever believed in me, to anybody that ever saw something in me when I didn't see it in myself that propelled me to be the young man that I am right now today. I stood up behind him, I looked at my mother and my father, I said, I will make it. I guarantee you your hard work will not go in vain. Let me show you how God works. The next week at Crim High School, the same day of the week, me and all the seniors were sitting in a big classroom. I was sitting in the back. In walks my head coach. He said, everybody be quiet. He said, do you guys know who this is? And he presented him as a gift. And to the left of him stood Philip Foreman, head football coach, University of Tennessee Volunteers. I kid you not, everybody in the room looked up. They said, nope, we don't know that guy. I said, the nerve of these jokers, man. And I was sitting beside my friend Leslie Giles, and I tapped him on his leg, you know, I'm excited. I said, man, that's Philip Foreman, head football coach, University of Tennessee Volunteers. He said, who? I said, the orange and white checkerboard end zone, man. Everybody knows the orange and white checkerboards. He said, Inky, I don't know what you're talking about, but I hope you get a scholarship and you get out of here. We went back to my head coach's office. This is why Coach Philip Foreman is my guy. I love him. I love him to death. We took a seat in my head coach's office. Coach Foreman looked at me. He said, Inky Johnson, I want to offer you a full scholarship to the University of Tennessee. I wasn't even qualified to get into college. I said, Coach, you know my situation, right? He said, yeah, I know your situation, but I believe in you. He said, I'll see you in the summer. I said, Coach, I'm coming. He laughed. He said, Inky, I don't even think you understand how this process works. He said, son, first you have to take an official visit. You come up, you see the city, you hang out with the players, you hang out with the coaches, and then you make your decision if you're coming. I said, Coach, I don't think you understand. I said, Coach, you're dealing with a kid that comes from a 2-bedroom home, 14 individuals. I said, Coach, you're dealing with a kid that sleeps on the floor. You're dealing with a kid that when I did catch the bus, I would race to be the first one at the bus stop to shake my book bag and my jackets out to make sure there were no roaches and rats. You're dealing with a kid, some mornings I would step off the porch. My Uncle Johnny had been on the corner selling drugs all night. He wore a 5X t-shirt. I was 139 pounds. He had sold drugs in his 5X t-shirt all night. He would take this 5X t-shirt off, he would put it on me, and I would have to go to school in it. I was 139 pounds standing at the bus stop in a 5X t-shirt. So when I tell you I am coming, I am coming. You don't even have to waste the university's money. You give me a date, you give me the time, and I will be there. He said, yeah, but I still want you to take an official visit, and so I did. And so I came up to town on that Saturday. Had a basketball game that Friday night, so I got up to town. We ate at Calhoun's off the river, had a great time, and so after dinner you have a host. And so what your host is supposed to do, he's supposed to take you out on the town, show you a big time, man, have fun, take you to some parties, take you to some sorority girls' parties. You know, you're supposed to have a big time, right? And so my host was Jason Swain. I'll never forget, we come out and he's hyped. He's stoked. He's like, man, we got a big night planned. Man, we're about to blow your mind, man. He was like, there's a sorority party, man. There's a barbecue and there's a basketball game. Which one do you want to go to? I said, if you don't mind, can you take me back to my hotel room? I was staying at the Marriott over off of Summit Hill. He said, what? I said, did you not just hear me? He said, man, there's a sorority party. He said, I don't know if you've ever been to a college sorority party, but they get pretty wild. He said, there's a barbecue, there's a basketball game. Which one do you want to go to? We can go to all three if you like. I said, man, I'm cool. If you don't mind, can you take me back to my hotel room? He said, cool, I'll still get my stipend. And so we pull up at the Marriott off of Summit Hill, and I'm getting out of the car, and he said, hold up. He said, are you sick? I said, no, man, I'm not sick. So I got up in that room. What Jason Swain didn't understand and what nobody else understood about that whole visit, that was my first time being in a room by myself in my own bed. I cared less about a sorority party. I didn't care about a sorority party or a barbecue or a basketball game. I had my own king-size bed. I got up in that room. I got on that phone. I called my boys back in Kirkwood. I said, man, y'all ain't gonna believe this. I said, man, you guys gotta go to college. They was like, hey, shut up. I said, you get your own bed. They said, really? I said, king size at that. But that Sunday was the day that you made your decision solid. And the thing I did on that Sunday, I still do this until this day when I see Coach Philip Foreman. Because he means that much to me. I had an award presented to me this summer from the Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame. And they told me I could pick anybody in the world to present me with this award. I could pick my wife, and I could pick my high school coach, I could pick my mother, my grandmother. And it was the Pat Summitt Ignite Greatness Award. And they said, who would you like to present you with this award? And I said, Coach Philip Foreman. But on that Sunday, the thing I did to Coach Philip Foreman, it's not like this big circus that it is today. You come in, you handle your business, you get ready to play ball. I shook his hand. I gave him a hug. I stepped back. I said, thank you. I said, not only for changing my life, but for changing countless others' lives back in Kirkwood that you don't know nothing about. I said, because coming from where I'm from, we don't see this happening every day. We saw people getting killed. We saw people getting robbed. We saw people going off 30, 40, 50 years to prison, but coming off of my block, we didn't see people going to college. So when I got back to Atlanta, I went on those same corners. I went to that same Amical gas station where the gang members hung out. I said, I told you guys, man. I told y'all I was going to college. And so now everybody's response was, Ink, why did you come back to Crim High School? Why didn't you just stay across town at Tucker High School? Ink, you had an easier route, man. You had better resources. You probably would be better prepared for college. Ink, why did you come back to where you had to fight, Ink? Why did you come back and risk your life? Why did you come back to Crim High School? And I said, you guys are missing the boat. I said, it's kind of like when you ride some of these airplanes and you go in the restroom on some of these airplanes, and as you're leaving out, there's a sign on the wall. And that sign says, as common courtesy to the person that's coming behind you, can you wipe the sink out and leave it better than you found it? Well, it's common courtesy to the generation that was coming behind me to Crim High School, I was about to leave it better than I found it. Whatever sacrifice, whatever dedication. You see, what people didn't see and what people didn't realize, what my mother didn't realize at the time, what my pastor didn't realize at the time, what my father didn't realize at the time, every night I slept on that floor with roaches and rats. I had my 3 little cousins sleeping on that same floor beside me. And every night in the midst of roaches and rats, you know what I had in my hand? My football. And I would toss that football up in the air and I would catch it and I would look from dead square in the eyes. I would say, man, I can't wait until I make it to the NFL. It's going to be trouble. And the one beside me would have his basketball. He would flip it up in the air. He would catch it. He was like, Inky, I can't wait until I make it to the NBA, man. It's going to be trouble. And the one beside him had his baseball. He would flip it up in the air. He would catch it. He would say, Inky, I can't wait until I make it to the major leagues. It's going to be trouble. And so the thing I knew personally in my spirit, I could have easily went across town, took the easy way out, went to the University of Georgia. Some people would say, man, that's a great story. First generational college student. And man, he did it. But the thing I knew in my spirit, the thing I knew, I still would have had to come back into Kirkwood and speak into the lives of my little cousins. And when I would have posed the question, why aren't you guys doing what you have to do in order to make it to college? They'd say, Ink, you went across town, we didn't have the same opportunity. So I wanted to remove any justification for any excuses. I don't believe in excuses. I don't believe in your product of your environment. No, you're a product of your decisions and your choices. Every day you wake up. One of the greatest things about life, one of the greatest things about life, regardless of what you're facing, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what life deals you, one of the greatest things about life, every day you wake up, you have a choice. Every day you wake up, you have a choice. It isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. Every day you have a choice of the attitude that you will embrace toward life and the perspective that you will see life with. And as a result of my sacrifice, you know what my 3 little cousins did? I was the first one in our family to make it to college. You know what they did? They got their butts up off that floor and they went to college and they graduated. See, when you go through life, you can't just go through life living life for yourself. You can't just live a selfish life. You should live a selfless life. Every day you wake up, 2 words should come to mind. Honor and legacy. Every day you wake up, you honor the ones that paved the way for you. You leave a legacy for the ones that's coming behind you. You should be a value creator every day. And what a value creator adds value to every person's life that they come in contact with and every environment that they go into. Some people just go into environments saying, what can I take? Or meeting people, what can I get from this person? Not what can I give this person, or what can I add to this environment, or what can I add to my workplace today? Not going into it, what can I take from my workplace today? What can I take from this person? Selfish people, man. That's why when they hit opposition, that's why when they hit adversity, that's why when they hit a rough patch in their life, they give up. Because they're not doing it for anybody else. They don't have a purpose to what they're doing. They're not honoring anybody. They're not trying to leave a legacy. They're just trying to see, man, I'm just trying to get all that I can get out of this life. I'm just trying to get all of the money that I can get. I'm just trying to get the biggest house. I'm just trying to get the biggest car. At some point in life, none of that means a thing. Who cares about that? It's about the impact that you leave in this world. That's the story about a guy who was laying in a hospital bed, and he was on his deathbed, and he was lying there, and, you know, it was like the angels came to see him. It was like the angels came to see him, right? And he was lying there on his deathbed, and they said, man, we bless you with all these gifts and talents, and you didn't use any of us. You was a gifted individual. You was a talented individual, and all you cared about was how much money you could get. All you cared about was what kind of car you had. All you did was live this materialistic life. And you never made an impact on anybody. You never changed anyone's life. You never operated within a bigger purpose. You see, I'm going to tell you something. When you get up every day and your life has purpose, when you get up every day and your life has purpose, see, if your life doesn't have purpose, your life is like a pencil with no end. It has no point. And so every day you get up, you don't have any direction. But when you get up every day and you have a purpose, you have a paralyzed right arm and hand, and they say, hey man, you can't use that arm anymore. And I say, I'm using this arm every day by the way that I live my life. Because my life has purpose. I don't live my life for me. That's why some of the decisions, some of the choices that I had to make, nobody understood them. Because it wasn't about Inky Johnson. It was about the ones that paved the way for me. I was honoring them, and about the ones that were coming behind me. I had to leave a legacy for them. Every day you wake up, make it bigger than just your job. That's how you become a champion. That's how you're really all in. That's how you empty the bucket. You can't just empty the bucket and call yourself a champion if you just come into an Aflac office or you just do your job and you do it great and you do a great job. But you're a public success, but you're a private failure. You're a public success, but you're a private failure. You don't give everything you got to your family. You don't give everything you got to God. You see, when I speak, I'm not talking about just football. When I speak, I'm just not talking about your God. I'm talking about taking every aspect of your life to the next level. That's what emptying the bucket is. You see, when I step on the stage and I give everything I got, when I get home tonight, I don't care what time it is. I'm going to wake my wife up. I'm going to wake my kids up. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get on my knees and I'm going to pray with them. Because that's what I call all in. I call all in being all in every aspect of your life, and watch how your life change. Watch the impact that you have then. Watch when you go and meet a person. Watch the impact that you have on their life. Watch the legacy that you leave when it's all said and done and when it's all over. People are going to love you, man. That's what it's about. It's about making an impact in this world. It's about making a difference. It's about you as a person, your existence meaning something. You see, a lot of people live. A lot of people live. A lot of people exist. But a lot of people don't make an impact in this world. Let's go out every day, and when we come in and we do this thing, man, let's do it to another level, man. Let's really be all in. Let's not let some petty opposition, some petty adversity, some petty trial and tribulation stop us. That's nothing. That's nothing. My purpose is greater than any opposition. My reason for existing on this earth is better than any adversity. That's why in 2006, and when I was 8 games away from the NFL, I was a top 30 projected draft pick. Top 30. And I went to make a tackle in the 4th quarter against the Air Force, and my whole life changed. I went and I hit a guy, and it seemed as if every breath in my body left. And I fell to the ground, and I blacked out, and with my eyes open, my teammates ran over to me, and they said, Ink, get up, let's go, man. And I said, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? They said, you always get up. Get up, man, let's go, we need you. You're out locked down the corner, man, you're our guy, let's go. I said, I can't. I said, I can't move. And I'll never forget, I flipped my head to the left. I saw the doctors and the trainers running onto the field. I flipped my head up to the sky. I said, God, I said, surely nothing has happened in this moment that can alter my life. I flipped my head back over to the left. I saw them bringing the spine board out. I said, God, they have to do that, right? I said, that's precautionary measures. They put me up on the spine board. They're taking me off the field. We get to about midfield. The crowd starts to chant, Inky Johnson. I said, Doc, can you lift my right arm and hand? Because I couldn't feel it at the time. He said, sure, man. He lifted it up, and I raised my left. And I pumped it to the supporters. Let them know I'll be okay. And I said, you can take it down. And as he was lowering my arm, I looked at him. I said, oh, yeah. I said, I'll be back. He got me over to the ambulance. My father was waiting there. I said, Pops, did I get him, man? Did I lay a nice lick on him? He said, yeah, son, but I think you got the worst part of it. They got me in the ambulance. They rushed me over to the hospital. They ran some CAT scans. They brought me back into my room. And all in a 15-second time frame, my father, he took a step in. He couldn't stomach it. He walked out. My mother walked in. She said a quick prayer by my bedside. She walked out. As soon as she walked out, the doctor walked in. He said, hey, get in there. Got to rush this guy back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. I said, what happened? He said, son, you have busted up subclavian artery in your chest and you're bleeding internally. Had to rush you back and take the main vein out of your left leg, plug it into your chest in order to save your life. After I woke up from recovery, that same doctor was standing over me. He said, son, I have some good news and some bad news for you. He said, you got some bad news for me after telling me I was about to die? Like, how bad can it get? He said, yes. He said, the good news is, son, we saved your life. He said, the bad news is you have nerve damage in your right shoulder. He said, we don't know how much. We have to send you up to the Mayo Clinic to let a team of nurse specialists look at you to further determine the outcome. He said, but you probably can never play the game of football again. You probably can never work for Aflac again. And I remember thinking in my mind in that moment, I said, man, I respect this doctor, I respect his expertise, but this doctor wasn't in the park with me and my mother when I was 7 years old. I said, this doctor didn't grow up in that 2-bedroom home, 14 individuals. I said, this doctor wasn't up at 5:30 on Saturday mornings running miles and miles. This doctor wasn't in the office late. This doctor wasn't making all those extra phone calls and all those extra home visits. This doctor didn't do that. I had been through opposition before. I hit adversity before. I remember being a kid, not knowing my next meal was coming from and walking into my grandmother's room, and I didn't have to say a thing. I would stand by the edge of her bed, and she would be reading her Bible, and she would look at me and say, son, everything is going to be okay. And that night, we were eating syrup sandwiches. I remember being a kid waking up on Christmas to no gifts because somebody broke into our house on Christmas Eve while we were there, and they stuck a gun in my face, and they took everything. Nothing had ever stopped me. I remember being a kid standing in the parking lot watching our whole house burn down behind the drug deal that went bad, and we had nothing to do with it. And when it's a 2-bedroom home and there's 14 people, you don't have much. And watching the guy run from behind our house and my uncle shoot him down. I had been through adversity. Nothing had ever stopped me. Everything that I had ever been through in my life, I looked at it as a hurdle that I had to get over in order to get to where I needed to be in my life. My whole life, I've been going through life with the mindset of a Navy SEAL. A Navy SEAL is so cold-blooded, they make up in their mind before the mission that they're going to complete the mission. Meaning if it does not kill me, I may lose an arm along the way, I may lose a leg along the way, I may lose a finger along the way, I may lose a hand along the way. But if it does not kill Inky Johnson, it will not stop me. You have to take my life before you take my drive. I said, Doc, send me up to the Mayo Clinic. I said, my career is not over. I said, you know what? I'll just go to sleep every day at 6 o'clock. I'll wake up the next morning, this will all be over with. I'll be back to normal, I'll be back training, getting ready for next season. I had got up to 5'9", I was 165 pounds, I was bench pressing 325 pounds. I ran a 4.38 and a 40. I had the fastest shuttle in the history at the University of Tennessee. I had talked to several NFL scouts. It was written. And every morning I would wake up, I would touch my arm and I would say, man, I still can't feel it. I would try to move it. I still couldn't move it. When the final visit came at the Mayo Clinic, it was me, my mother, my father, and the doctors. They said, Inky Johnson, here's the deal. They said, son, you have torn all the nerves in your brachial plexus. They said, son, we hate to tell you, you have torn them at all levels. They can't be replugged. They said, son, your arm will never be the same again. It's the same arm I bench pressed 325 pounds with. This was the same arm I'd come down on the basketball court, I'd hit a move on you at the elbow, and I would rise up and I would dunk the basketball with. This was the same arm I can hit home runs with. He said, son, your hand will never be the same again. He said, son, we hate to tell you, but you could never play the game of football again. You could never work at Aflac again. Son, we understand that you were a four-sport athlete your whole life, but son, you can never play any sports again. Your arm will never be in a condition for you to play baseball. Your arm will never be in a condition for you to play basketball. Your arm will never be in a condition for you to run track again. What do you do when all your options get taken away at once? He said, by the way, here are your surgery options. You could take a muscle out of the back of your left leg, plug it into your right arm, but there's a possibility that you'll be left with a weak left leg and a weak right arm the rest of your life. Or you could take a nerve out of your left arm, reroute it up through your chest, down into your right arm, but there's a possibility that you'll be left with 2 weak arms the rest of your life. Or you can take a nerve out of your left rib, reroute it up through your chest, down into your right arm, but there's a possibility that you'll be left with a breathing problem and a weak right arm the rest of your life. By the way, tell us what you want to do in the morning. I was 20 years old when that happened. I remember walking out of that office and I tried my best to make it to my hotel room door, And I don't know if anybody in this room has ever felt this way, but it seemed as if every step I took, that burden got heavier and heavier, until it literally weighed me down to the floor. I didn't even make it to my hotel room door. I stopped. I took a seat in the middle of the hallway, and I backed up against the wall. My mother and father took a seat across from me. And I looked at my father, because I'm going to be honest, I needed some answers, and I needed him quick. And I said, Pops, what would you do, man? What would you do if you were in this situation? And he lifted his head up. And he said, son, he said, the two people that I considered to be good people were you and my mother. He said, I lost my mother when I was 14 years old to cancer. And he said, now this has happened to my son. He said, for the life of me, I just don't understand what bad things happen to good people. And he said, Ink, I remember you at the top of your game, man, and I would call and I would say, Ink, are you headed to a party? And you would say, nah, Pops, I'm headed to Bible study. And he lifted his arms up, and he dropped his head. When he picked his head up, he slammed his arms down and he hit the floor. And he said, I'll tell them to do all that they can do. And for the first time in my life, I saw tears running down my father's face. I never saw my father cry before. You see, what my father, I told you, he would say, son, I need you to pull that other person outside of you today. But what he would say prior to that, he would say, Ink, we're immortal. He would say, nothing can stop us. Nothing can break us. There is nobody else on the face of this planet that works like us. Ink, there is nobody else that's of the pedigree that we are. And so my whole life, I thought me and my father was immortal. That nothing can stop us, that nothing can break us, that nothing can make us give up, that nothing can make us give in. But in that hotel room in Rochester, Minnesota, when I saw tears running down my father's face, what registered in my mind as a green 20-year-old, said, man, me and my father were no longer immortal. And I shifted and I looked at my mother and she was bawling. You see, I grew up in the house with my mother. I didn't grow up in the house with my father, so me and my mother had been through everything together. I remember the time my mother saved up months, not a month, months, to buy me some red and gray Nike cleats. I'll never forget it. And right after she bought me those cleats, we rode up 2 blocks, we went to a convenience store. And right before she got out of that Beard Regal, she looked at me, she said, son, I'm about to go in here and risk my freedom and steal you some drawers to put on your hind leg, because I don't have any more money. And so my mother would rather take her check and buy me some cleats and go and risk her freedom and steal me some drawers to put on my hind leg. And now you're telling me I can't do this anymore. And tears were streaming down my mother's face, but in the midst of her tears, my mother looked at me and she said, son, don't you worry about it. God is in control. That night, I went into my hotel room. I used to wear this black bracelet. I used to play every game in it. I did every workout in it. And after the game, after I was a grad assistant coach over at the University of Tennessee, this probably was the only good thing that came out of Lane Kiffin being at the University of Tennessee. And now I was a grad assistant on the staff, right? But after the game, I was coming out of the tunnel and I had that black bracelet on. And a kid walked up to me and he said, hey, can I have that? I said, what, this hat? He said, no, that. I said, what, this duffel bag, man? He said, no, that. And he tapped the bracelet. And I looked at the bracelet, looked at the kid, looked at the bracelet, took it off and I gave it to him. I said, man, that's something special. But on that bracelet that night in Rochester, Minnesota, lied conviction. That bracelet read, man of faith. You see, I was just like everybody else. You got faith? Yeah, I got faith. Big faith, big power, right? Little faith, little power. Faith and fear can't reside in the same mind. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I knew all the faith lines, but I had yet to be placed in a situation that required me to use my faith. When I was placed in a situation that required me to use my faith, I was left questioning God. Can I tell you something this afternoon? A faith that has not been tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. That night I went into my hotel.